everyone, Fantasy Girl back here, and today is going to be a topic that has been talked about ever since the trailer for 5.5, and it's actually in reference to this scene where we have the image of a glowing figure by Silvertear and Mordona. The rumor going around is that this woman in white is none other than the mysterious Venat, the heart of Hydaelyn. But is this mysterious figure really the one and only Venat? Well, with all the evidence, little though we have, seems to point out that way. So today we're just going to be doing a video of a closer look at the woman in white and make our own educated guesses on if she really is or isn't Venat. Now, in Shadowbringers, we learned that Hydaelyn and Zodiark were primals and were created during the final days. The Convocation of 14, minus Azim the Traveler, were the ones who first summoned Zodiark in order to halt the final days. Now, their plan did work. However, the planet suffered greatly in the process, as well as the fact that half the citizens of Amarot were sacrificed in the summoning. Afterwards, another half of the remaining population was sacrificed to bring life back into the planet, and the Convocation had plans to sacrifice the newly born lives afterwards when the time was right to Zodiark so that he can bring their people back once more. However, in patch 5.2, we learned that not everyone supported this idea. There was a group of Amarteens who believed that not only was this crossing a line, they feared that Zodiark was growing too strong and that they would need to find a way to keep his powers in check, otherwise it would still spell out doom for them. Their leader seemed to have been a high-ranking member of Amarot named Venat, and in order to summon a primal equal in strength to Zodiark, she would have to become the primal's heart. She understood this, and of course she ended up doing that, and that's how Hydaelyn was created. FFXIV revealed to us the outcome of this battle, where Hydaelyn and Zodiark fought until Hydaelyn dealt the final blow and ended up shattering the world into the source and its 13 shards. Afterwards, Venat is not seen or heard from again, or so we think. Now, one simple answer is that she is still alive, but is still merged together with Hydaelyn as her heart, which is possible, but I find that unlikely for a few reasons, but most of all, the fact is she was the leader of those who opposed Zodiark. So going up against the Convocation of 14 is pretty much considered to be an act of treason, and despite the fact that she was not a member of the Convocation, at least not that we're aware of, they would have seen this as a huge betrayal of their own peoples, and so they probably would not have been very happy to have ever seen her again. Like, they would probably have just called her like their mortal enemy, which she pretty much is. And yet, Elidibus, at the same time, found a way to separate himself from Zodiark and was working alongside the remaining members of the Convocation to rejoin the worlds together, whereas Venat we still haven't seen a trace of. I find it hard to believe that she will simply forget about everything that happened and just sort of sit back and remain as Hydaelyn's heart, especially since she knows that some members of the Convocation still survived, even though they were fractured. It has not been confirmed for us yet, but there is a lot of talk that this woman by the lake is Venat, and she's finally making an appearance just before the end. She appears and warns the Warrior of Light of the coming darkness before she fades away, and she's the same woman that we ended up seeing on the cover art for Endwalker. So I pulled up two posters here, one's for Shadowbringers and of course the other is for Endwalker. Now, let's look to the poster for Shadowbringers first, where we see the darkness at the bottom and a light-filled sky near the top with purple at the edges. Now, both the darkness and the purple that we see here really brings to mind the Ascians and Zodiark and just how much we learned about them from this particular storyline. Also, we do have Reen as the Oracle of Light, with her standing almost angelically at the top, as well as both FFXIV and Grahatia, also known as the Exarch, standing on either side of her. So that alone actually tells us a lot about the story here, just with the very top image of it. But if you look at Endwalker's artwork, we actually see that the color scheme is mostly hints to blues and a rising sun behind them, banishing the darkness. That also shows a lot here because this he's going to be learning a lot more about Hydaelyn. Like, Shadowbringers was really mostly about getting to know the Ascians, at least certain members of the Ascians, and Zodiark, and the reasons for why they're doing this. This particular story, despite the fact it's being the end, I do think it's also going to be us learning a lot more about Hydaelyn. Because at this point, we seem to know more about Zodiark than we do with Hydaelyn, despite the fact that we're supposed to be kind of her champion. So I do think that this is going to be a good revelation, that we are going to be getting a lot more information about Hydaelyn as a character, and of course Venat, and kind of wrapping up her whole storyline. Which, if I have to be honest, I do not think that Hydaelyn and Zodiark are going to be remaining by the end of Endwalkers. I think that we are going to be saying goodbye to them. I don't know how that story is going to go, but hopefully we will be able to get there. Now, if you look carefully at the characters' formation, you see them actually standing in a kind of diamond shape. It's the same shape as the Mother Crystal, as Hydaelyn. So looking from bottom to top, you can actually see the very tip of the bottom part of the Mother Crystal, like right beneath Satoru's feet. And as the more you travel upwards, you see her light kind of drifting in like between the characters. Not only can you see the light shining through them, it also looks like it's surrounding certain members of the Scions the higher up that you travel, until finally you get to the top, where you see the woman in white. Behind her, you can clearly see the very tip of the Mother Crystal of Hydaelyn's spire, and you see these streams of ether kind of floating about the head of the spire. So these look to be the same kind of ether streams that we've saw before when we traveled to the Ethereal Sea and were able to speak with Hydaelyn in person. Been a long time since we were able to do that. However, the resemblance here cannot be a coincidence. The dev team very rarely just put something in there just because they think it looks good. They do that, I admit that. They have come out and admitted that to certain times. However, there is no way that this was an accident. And also, if you look at the positioning here of the characters, the woman in white is at the top, just as Reen had been in the last poster, shining almost angelically down on all the other characters. So all of this is well and good, but we still don't have definitive proof that this really could be Venat. However, I think we actually do. So if we go all the way back to 5.2, it's really this scene when we first learn of Venat that we get our biggest clue. During the recordings, when the Scions find out of the summoning of both Zodiark and Hydaelyn, we learn of Elidibus's role in this and how he sacrificed himself to become Zodiark's heart. But also, at the same time, we learn that Venat chose the same sacrifice, choosing themselves to become Hydaelyn's heart. And it's really when she says this that kind of reveals like all the information we really need. Rest assured, however, I shall not vanish from this world. The form I take shall ever remain my choice. So, while she probably is not the exact same person that she was way back then, if you especially look at what Elidibus became after everything that happened to him, it stands to reason that Venat has still been there fighting the whole time, like doing what she can to support Hydaelyn and just protect this world. If we look at Elidibus and the other Ascians, we know that they are able to take on any form that they choose by inhabiting the bodies of mortals. They take on forms that they feel would be most helpful in their quest to cause a rejoining, and I can see that Venat could be capable of doing the same thing. Also, back in A Realm Reborn, we learned that when an Ascian chooses not to inhabit a body, they might as well be ghosts that no one can see or hear without the power of the echo. Such as when Elidibus appeared at the Rising Stones. No one else could see him save for Minfilia, who does have the echo, and he even comes out and confirms this to her, that nobody save those with this special gift can possibly see them whenever they're like this. So when the woman in white appears at the lake, no one else is able to see her save the Warrior of Light. Although one could argue that it's simply because the others were already leaving, I kind of find it hard to believe that no one would notice a glowing woman standing by the lake, especially since Estinian was there, and when he looked back, he didn't seem to sense anyone else was there when the Warrior of Light was on high alert. I admit I'm a little annoyed that the Warrior of Light just sort of stood there, saw this figure appear, but didn't so much as look like they told anybody about this. As to why she only appeared for a moment is hard to say, but it could be that she's still too weak to really explain, or perhaps it was deliberate vagueness, which wouldn't surprise me from the dev team. The fact, though, is that she did appear at the lake, and that can't be a coincidence either. So if we look back even as far as 1.0 lore, we learned that long ago Midgardsormr left his home world of the Dragon Star and came here after being pursued by Omega. He fled across the cosmos with eggs of his children on his back and flew on until they came to this world where Hydaelyn gave them sanctuary. So technically Midgardsormr and his children are all aliens. Yeah, you heard that right. They're definitely aliens. However, that is neither here nor there. What is important is that after his children hatched and were raised into adulthood and so that they could fly off and live their own lives, Midgardsormr seemed to take on the role as a guardian of the lake, a role that Hydaelyn had given to him. But why? Why would she task him to guard this lake specifically? After the battle with the Garleans and their main flagship, the Agrias, they both ended up crashing into the water and broke whatever seal was placed upon the waters, releasing a cascade of ether that was sealed within. So I really hope we get to learn more about that, since that's clearly been a question that I've actually been wondering about since around Reborn when I first saw the cutscene, and even more so after we spoke with Midgardsormr. Bit back to the Lady in White. So, just by her appearance alone, it really does show that she appears to be an Amyrtine. She appears to us dressed in long, sweeping robes, and she's holding onto a mask. Not just any kind of mask, though. That's clearly an Amyrtine mask, albeit it's a much more decorative one than the plain white ones that we're used to seeing. From this mask and its ancient styling and symbols, it's kind of reminiscent of Hydaelyn's kind of winged form that we've seen in the cave drawings. Not only that, when she speaks directly to the Warrior of Light, she says, "Hear me, hear me," which is very close to her hear, feel, think remarks that she always uses. So it all kind of just points directly to her. And if you really kind of want to wear the tinfoil hat, I suppose, you could say that she looks very similar to both Reed and Minfilia. Of course, not exactly like them, but remember when Minfilia first became the Word of the Mother, her hair suddenly became styled in a way that was very similar to Venat's here. At the very least, it would explain why her hair grew out so quickly and so suddenly. It could be that she was taking on a form very similar to Venat. And then, in the first, all the Minfilias that came after her, the Oracles of Light, I'm guessing that they must have all looked very similar to her as well, especially with the hair and the eyes. And Reed, I suppose you can say, also looks very similar to her as well, though not as much anymore ever since she took on the power of the Oracle and sort of became her own person. So with all that evidence kind of put together, even though it is mostly what we are able to kind of make out, it does seem to be pointing to the fact that the woman in white is Venat. This could be just a projection of her true self appearing before us, or maybe some kind of a form that's similar to how she may have looked before the final days as she tries to reach out to the Warrior of Light. But why would she go through the trouble to appear in the first place? It seems to me that both she and Hydaelyn are struggling to kind of keep things together at this point, so I guess that makes sense. We know that Hydaelyn has been growing weaker and weaker for some time now. And I also want to point out that when we first go to Master Matoya, we learn about her crystal eye. We learn about how the fact she has a crystal of light from an era far long ago. And she herself even said at one point that the crystals of lights that Hydaelyn gives her champions grows weaker with every passing era. So this draining of power isn't something new. This seems to have been happening to Hydaelyn for a long time now, like she was gradually losing her powers as time went on. And it could be that we're just reaching perhaps the very last reservoirs of her energy. And again, that's kind of something I've been wondering about too, like why is Hydaelyn growing so weak at this point? Because the fact is, the people here, they kind of worship Hydaelyn as like the mother crystal. They worship her as the main goddess. So prayer and worship, that's probably not the big problem here. She probably has plenty of that. But what about the ether? It seems that something here seems to be draining her of energy. Either they're being actively weakened, or maybe they're just not able to recover from the rejoinings. Either way, I do like the idea that this woman in white, this Venat, may be set up as an ally though, and one that will hopefully be an active part of the story rather than someone who just sort of appears rarely on only to give advice, or maybe just play the part of the sideline character. I almost expect her to kind of show up as a kind of ghostly guide like with Oddbird, but it may be feeling a little too similar to Shadowbringer, so hopefully they will be able to find another way to kind of include her in the story. And I also am hoping that we're going to be getting more than just a few vague words from her from time to time than things that we already know. So her warning to the Warrior of Light was, "Darkness is coming and the final days are here. Help me, Warrior of Light, you are our only hope." Yeah, we know that. We know the final days are coming. We've been aware of that for some time now. Where have you been? I think she could have given us a little bit more to work with. I'm guessing that the reason that she was being so vague about it was because the dev team just didn't want to give her too much lines here, because they were afraid of giving us too many spoilers, I guess. That could possibly be the answer there. But if this really is Venat, she seems to be really pinning her hopes on us to prevent the end. As for Hydaelyn herself, it seems that the Mother Crystal does seem to care about us, and she is trying her best, given that she has stepped in to protect us from time to time, though that's been quite a while since we last heard from her, which is the really big thing that I'm struggling with right now, because it has been a very long time since we've heard anything from her at all. Because the Scions are right, it's been a very long time since Hydaelyn last spoke to the Warrior of Light directly, and it seems very suspicious that she has suddenly stopped trying to contact her after all this time. Even after facing up against Elidibus and the other Ascians and just so much that has happened, we really haven't had any kind of direct contact with her, and so that is really starting to raise red flags. So why she only appeared now and gave us a few simple words of things that we already know, that's maddeningly unhelpful. So hopefully, I really am hoping so that she's going to be playing a much bigger role than what they were giving out so far. Personally, I think that it is almost certain that this is Venat, and that she is going to be acting as some kind of a guide or observer in the trials to come. Whether or not she will be joining us in battle has yet to be seen, but I do think that she will be joining us on the road for at least a little while. Anyway, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. That's my, I guess, evidence pointing to the fact that the woman in white happens to be Venat. So again, we really don't know for sure just yet. I am certain that once we get to Endwalkers, we are going to be meeting her, because it does seem like Charlene is going to be the first stop, which I am really looking forward to. And I think that she's going to be playing a major role in that little section of the world. What I mean by that is I think that Hydaelyn has a much bigger role in the fact that Charlene exists, much more than we realize. And I will be talking about all of that in future videos. So I am going to be doing like these discussion videos at least once a week, and I'm going to be trying to continue them for as long as possible, at least until Endwalker comes out. So I actually have a few all set up, ready to go, and I'm really looking forward to getting those out. But if you have any kind of discussions or predictions or just any kind of theories that you want me to talk about or look more into, please drop a comment down below. In the next video, we're going to be talking about Charlene and its possible role in the upcoming expansion. So if you're looking forward to hearing my theories about that, please subscribe down below, leave a like if you like this video, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you all again soon. So until then, everyone, this is Fantasy Girl signing out.